Brian Crandall is on the scene with another DOT official as we wait for phase 2 of the demolition. Hi again, Brian.
Well, hi, Frank. We understand that we're less than about 10 minutes away at this point. We still haven't heard the 5-minute warning, but less than 10 minutes. To explain more about that, we have the Director of the Department of Transportation, James Capaldi. Director, thanks for joining us. Just tell us what this day means to you. I know you did it once a month ago, but what does this mean for the department and for drivers in the state of Rhode Island?
Well, this is an important day because this takes out the major structure, the two 1,100-foot spans on either side, and we're actually going to be able to do the third blast today also. That's combined. That's going to take the top 50 feet out of both piers. It's going to be pretty loud.
Just tell us what you do to make sure that this goes according to plan. I know we were talking before about you wanted to check this personally. The people who are doing the job make sure it's done right. Tell us about that process and how you know it's being done right.
Right. Before the first blast, I had the person that actually puts together the detonation and the wiring and all that in my office. We had a 2.5-hour meeting and made them explain to me exactly how it was going to happen, the connectivity, how the electrical charges would work, and I was really convinced they had a great redundant system. So I was always afraid of what if you had shorts, what if it didn't work, because it's an electrical charge. These things are taking down these slice charges that slice the steel. It's not the dynamite, you say. So they're telling me 5 minutes now. You can hear.
Yeah, we just heard the foghorn in the back coming from the tugboat. 5 minutes out. I will hear another one in 1 minute from what I understand. Right. Are you going to give a countdown? How's this going to work?
Well, they said I'm going to do the countdown, so I will, and hopefully well, you can see now they finished their check. They've just been notified before, and we're in pretty good shape. Fortunately, we had a good day yesterday, and that was able to wrap it all up.
Yeah, tell us about the weather. You kind of had to push it back a couple times, and it's not. I guess if it had rained yesterday, would you have been able to do it today? Do you need a couple days of nice weather?
If it rained yesterday, we might not have been able to do both blasts. We were ready to do one blast today, which is the two side trusses that are remaining. But because it was such a good day yesterday, we finished charging the two piers. So you're going to hear the blast in 2 seconds. You're going to hear the blast for the trusses, and 2 seconds later, you're going to hear the blast for the concrete piers.
Now, what have you been told in terms of what to expect in terms of a visual and audio kind of experience here?
It's a two-way blast where and it's going to be very loud. That's all they would tell me is very loud.
All right. Thanks, Director Capaldi. We appreciate it. Frank, back to you.
Brian, of course, if you drove over the old Jamestown Bridge in its final years, you probably knew it was time for a replacement. But not everyone is happy to see it go. The night before phase 1 of the demolition began, NBC 10's Michelle Brown spoke to a local historian.
I really don't like to see the bridge gone, but I guess it's time.
Sue Madden is resigned to the fact that the old Jamestown Bridge is coming down, but she's not happy about it.
It's been there most of my life, and, a lot of things happen.
One of Sue's most vivid memories of the old bridge happened when she was a kid. She saw President Harry S. Truman on a ship going under it.
Somehow we got ourselves up to the bridge and walked up to the middle, and it was very exciting to see a president of the United States go under the bridge.
Those glory days are long gone. Time and tide have taken a toll on the old bridge. Opened in 1940, it finally closed to traffic in 1992. In its place, a sleeker, faster, taller Jamestown Verrazano Bridge. Sue's not crazy about the new bridge.
I don't think it's very interesting looking, and it doesn't strike in people the same kind of fear and awe that they had when they went over the old bridge.
The old bridge is also the stuff of legend, such as one about a construction worker who fell into one of the coffer dams and was buried alive.
I've looked at every newspaper article practically during the construction, and it just didn't happen.
Memories and folklore beckon in the distance from Sue Madden's front yard. And yes, she says she will shed a tear when the old bridge comes down.
I will. I definitely will, yeah.
Now, Sue Madden said she would have loved to see the bridge saved and used for recreational purposes. Michelle Brown, NBC 10 News.
There was a lot of talk about that, using the North Kingstown end of the bridge for a fishing pier. For years after the old bridge closed to traffic, a lot of fishermen and women went on the North Kingstown side of the old bridge to do some fishing. Fishing wasn't bad there either. I used to go fishing occasionally while the bridge was still open. Now that was an experience. 2-lane bridge, very skinny sidewalk. The bridge shook every time cars went by, and sometimes just when there were high winds. And every once in a while, a wise guy driver would throw a can of soda at the fishermen, too. So it was always kind of a risk to fish off that old bridge. The idea of keeping the North Kingstown end of the old bridge up upright, so to speak, for a fishing pier. Well, that kind of faded away because I think it was determined that structurally that side of the bridge would not be safe for all the fishermen and women who, by the way, continued to fish off that North Kingstown end of the bridge even after the DEM put up gates to keep people out. Every time they put a new lock on the gate, somebody'd break the lock and go fishing some more. That's the way people are. Brian Crandall's on the scene. I don't know, Brian, have you heard the 1-minute warning yet? We heard the 5-minute warning a few minutes ago.
Not yet, Frankie, and I haven't been looking at my watch. I would guess we're about 2 or so minutes out. We still haven't started the countdown or heard the 1-minute warning. You know, you were talking about the old stories from the bridge, and a lot of people a month ago and now today talk about, you know, what an experience it was to ride over the old Jamestown Bridge with those grates on the top. I actually had an old DOT supervisor tell me the reason for the grates was that they were afraid when it was built that there would be updrafts, and they didn't want a flat surface. They wanted the air to be able to move through. So I guess that was the reason for the grates. Just to explain to you again what's going to happen here, what we expect, is that there will be explosions actually in 3 different points. There's going to be both sides of the old bridge. There's 1,100 feet on both sides, 800 feet of truss, and then 300 feet more of girder kind of sloping down. You'll have that on each side. Then you'll have in the middle where that old center section was, there's still 2 huge concrete piers sticking up. They're going to blow the tops off of those. They're going to take the top 50 feet off of each one of those sections. That's where most of the explosives are, the dynamite, in terms of poundage, but there's also shape charges that are on the steel girders, and what we're told those do is essentially cuts the steel instead of blowing it up. So we expect to see 3 different areas on both sides of the bridge, in the middle where the concrete piers were, and what we're told is that this should be quite loud. And then because they're working closer to the shore, especially on the Jamestown side, there's going to be more home evacuations this time than there were a month ago. 35 homes on the Jamestown side. People have been asked to leave their homes for a couple hours while the work is being done. Last time in April, only 11 homes were evacuated, and the simple reason is that they're working closer to shore on the Jamestown side. What we're told is that there's going to be 2,000 tons of material that's going to come with this explosion. That's 4 million pounds, and it'll take a couple weeks once it goes into the water to clear it out. They're still working on clearing out the debris from the first blast back in April, and what they want to let boaters know is that it's still not really safe to go through there. We see some activity here on the shore. The director is standing up, holding his walkie-talkie, waiting for word from the other side. As we said before, there really isn't the dignitary crowd that was here before. The governor isn't here. There aren't a whole lot of people. There isn't a huge spectator area, official spectator area set up either. Last time there was one at the URI Narragansett Bay campus. There isn't that this time, but there are some people who have wandered down. We're actually in the backyard of a person's home, and there's people in the houses next door. They're camped out. I see the house next door. There's probably 10 or so people waiting for this to happen. The people here have binoculars. They have their cameras. They're ready to go. We're just waiting for the word from the director of DOT when this is going to happen, and he's taken the microphone just now. Here goes, we hear in the background the 1-minute warning from the foghorn. The director of DOT is going to talk for a couple minutes and wait for that to happen. Just to explain again, 3 blasts, and it should be quite loud, and like there was in April, there should be a little bit of a delay from when we actually see the blast and the material falling until we get the sound at the location where we are. And once this is done, there'll still be some work to do. They still have to take out the rest of the low-lying parts of the bridge that run across. We're told to do that. There will be about a dozen or so more blasting days during that time, but most of that work will be done underwater. Those will be shorter closures, maybe just a half hour of the current Jamestown Bridge. The current Jamestown Bridge is closed to traffic now. It has since 2:30. It's supposed to reopen again at 2 o'clock when all this is done. And I think we're just waiting for word here. We should be getting pretty close.
Yeah, apparently the marine mammal observers did not find any harbor seals or other mammals in the way of the explosion. Believe it or not, that would have delayed the demolition because they're very conscious about the federal rules protecting harbor seals and other mammals. I suppose we could theoretically have seen some dolphins here, or every once in a while a whale comes up the bay. Not often, though.
Yeah, Frank, what they were telling us was that if they did see a seal or something, they'd have to essentially wait for it to go away. I don't know if they would have shooed it away, made it move on its way, but they would have had to wait about 15 minutes or so until it made its way. They said they're very conscientious, but they also thought that it was kind of the end of seal season around here, so they weren't too concerned about that. I see the director of DOT kind of leaning down to the cell phones and the walkie-talkies waiting for word. And go.
We're in the final 30
Here we
seconds,
go.
I would say.
30 seconds. I guess that was a long 30 seconds. They're going to count now. That was a long 30 seconds, Frank. But as you said, there's 1,200 pounds of explosives in all that are going to be used here. Again, most of that is on the two concrete piers in the center where the old span was. They're going to blow the tops off those old concrete piers that are out there. They're using 72 pounds of shape charges on the sides, but that's where most of the action, so to speak, will be. On the sides of the bridge, the steel areas, 800 feet on each side, plus 300 feet more of that. I think it's 3 sections of steel girder where the road used to be that's going to come down. Again, 4 million pounds of material from this old bridge. You said it cost $3 million to build back in 1940, almost $20 million to take down now.
10,
oh, here we go with the countdown.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Detonation.
Got it perfectly, Will. Thank you.
And there you go, one more piece of Rhode Island history gone into Narragansett Bay. Went according to plan from what it looks like. The 2 spans on each side of the bridge, 1,100 feet on each side, 2,200 feet in all, 4 million pounds of material. As we said, you saw it first a couple seconds before the blast got here, and as billed, it was very loud. Frank?
Yeah, and in fact, I think I heard that was Jim Capaldi, the head of DOT, saying perfect. In other words, it all went according to plan with no difficulties. And if you are keeping a record of this sort of thing, the detonation officially happened at 11:25:14 on this Thursday morning, the 18th of May. From all of our shots from our various cameras on scene, it looked like everything came down that was supposed to come down. Looked that way to you, Brian?
Yeah, it looked that way, and we're actually going to get the word from Jim Capaldi from DOT. As far as you're concerned, how did that look?
Oh, that was great, fantastic, and it was a lot louder than even I thought it was. But it's all down. You can see there's one little piece that's hung up over there on the left side.
Oh yeah.
All the rest of it is in perfect shape, and the piers look perfect. That was my concern too. Those piers come down.
Now, what will you do to get that last piece down? Will somebody have to climb up there and get it down?
It'll be a mechanical removal. So they'll find out what part maybe didn't go. Those are the electrical charges. So as long as there's no electricity, there's no danger. So they'll be able to get up there and probably mechanically take it down. But that's the one small piece isn't a problem.
Okay. Now, what's going to happen? How will you clear that out of the bay? All that material that's sticking out there.
It's a process of loading it onto barges, cutting it up, loading it onto barges, and it's being recycled pretty much. The contractor is allowed to recycle it and keep it and recycle it. It's in the contract.
Compare this to the last blast in April in terms of what you saw, what it sounded like.
This one was much louder, and the delay and the sound was, I think, much more deafening to me than the last one, which I think was one big shot, where this one was double. I thought I would hear more of a double blast, but I guess we didn't. We just heard one large blast.
Now, you may have been, I mean, I guess the focus was kind of on those side areas, but take a look at the middle and where that center truss was. I mean, that all went according to plan. Those center piers are a lot shorter than they were just a couple minutes ago.
Absolutely perfect. That was the one I was worried about, because that had close to 1,250 pounds of dynamite in it. So that's the area that, if you saw, completely was obliterated by the second blast.
Now, just tell us why they did the top by dynamite, but then the bottom they'll do.
There actually is an obstruction 50 feet down. They tried to drill through it to put the blast there. They're not sure what the obstruction was, so they stopped at 50 feet. Now we'll take the rest down mechanically. So.
Okay. So when will you be debriefed on, I guess, exactly how it went? If there are any problems that we can't see, or any other issues, or anything like that?
I don't see much. I'll probably be told why that little piece got stuck there. But I think other than that, I think everything went great, and now it's just a cleanup process, and all of our major blasts are done. So I'm so glad that's over. So.
I mean, were you nervous?
Yes, you only get one chance to do this right. It's not like I can work on something if it isn't right. You only get one shot. It either happens correctly or it doesn't. So you get a little anxious when everyone's watching what you're doing. So, but I think it went great, so we're all happy about that.
Great. Jim Capaldi, Director of DOT, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Frank, back to you.
Okay, Brian, and it looks like there was no damage to the new bridge. I'm sure Jim Capaldi and the others were concerned about that. No damage to the new bridge that you know of?
It appears that way. He said the only issue that he saw was there's one dangling piece that didn't quite blow off. I can see there's actually, on the current bridge, there's a truck that's going across now, so I don't know if they're checking for damage or just making sure that everything went according to plan. But there is a slow-moving orange truck with an orange light on top that's moving across, so I don't know if, you know, they're trying to just make sure what the issue was. They're kind of stopped at the area where that one dangling piece was. I don't think they're going to try to get a look at that, see what the issue was and what they can do. So there's actually a couple more vehicles kind of moving down in that direction now. But I think if there was a problem with the current bridge, they wouldn't be driving there. So it looks like the current bridge is okay. As the director said, just that one issue with that dangling girder on the very last section on the North Kingstown side of the bridge that didn't quite go down into the water as planned.
Yeah, we're watching those two trucks as you are here from our coverage from the various cameras. Right now we have the DOT camera located on the Jamestown side of the Jamestown Bridge. This is a videotape replay of the demolition phase 2 that happened just a few minutes ago. And as you can see, the smoke from the explosives is drifting toward the new bridge, and presumably all the metal material went straight down as opposed to heading towards the new bridge with the wind. But now we can see in this live picture that some crews are on the bridge checking, we presume, the structural integrity of the new bridge, and also checking that little piece of metal hung up on what was the left side of the old bridge that didn't quite go down into the water with the rest of the pieces of the old bridge. People are going to miss this old bridge for a number of reasons, all the sentimental reasons that were mentioned by you, Brian, and in our videotape reports. But you know, even after the old bridge was closed, there were other uses for that old structure besides the people who went fishing on it. For a while, whenever Jamestown had a water shortage, a piping system was set up on the old bridge. Pipeline was constructed to connect the Jamestown water system with the North Kingstown water system. Jamestown's reservoir was one of the first in the state to have its levels drop to dangerously low levels whenever there was a drought or warm weather, and North Kingstown helped out its neighbor Jamestown in terms of drinkable water numerous times over the years since 1992, when the old bridge was closed. You're watching special coverage of this event, Phase 2 of the demolition of the old Jamestown Bridge. I'm Frank Coletta in the studio here in Cranston, and Brian Crandall, as you know if you've been with us since about 11 a.m., is in North Kingstown. Brian?
Yeah, hi Frank. Just to recap, as we said, apparently the early indication is that almost everything went according to plan. They blew up 2,200 feet of the old Jamestown Bridge on both sides of the center span that they destroyed about a month ago. The one issue that is remaining is the one dangling piece at the very end of the section that they destroyed just a short time ago. They said they'll take that down manually, and that's what they'll do. That's what they'll do to the rest of the bridge on either side. They'll take it down over the next couple months. There'll be a couple more closures. But the major work, what the DOT director said, is done in terms of explosions. Frank?
All right, thank you, Brian. Brian Crandall on the scene in North Kingstown as we've watched, what would you call it, maybe a 95% successful demolition Phase 2 of the old Jamestown Bridge. Just that one little piece, see it there, that one little piece hung up on what was the left side of the old bridge that did not go down with the rest of it. They'll take that down the old-fashioned way in the days and weeks ahead. And that concludes our special report. We will bring you a complete wrap-up of the demolition a little bit later. In fact, less than 30 minutes away from now on NBC 10 News at noon. Here's what else we're working on for our noon broadcast. We have word of a disturbing discovery on a Newport beach. Scientists headed to the scene this morning to investigate, and we'll explain that. We'll also have the latest on this Monopoly controversy, whether there will be a boardwalk on the new Monopoly game board. Hasbro officials will be making the final call. In fact, they apparently have made it. We'll have their decision later today at noon. Also, the search for Jimmy Hoffa. It's on again. We'll bring you the latest as federal officials are checking out some property in Michigan. We have all of that, plus the latest weather forecast at midday on NBC 10 News at noon, just about 27 minutes away from right now. Thank you for joining us this morning for this NBC 10 News special report on Phase 2 of the demolition of the Jamestown Bridge. I'm Frank Coletta. Stay tuned. Next, we'll join the Martha Stewart Show, already in progress, and then we'll see you again at noon.
That